Chapter 40, in which Satoru Takahata moves into Reynard Manor. Satoru Takahata looked over his belongings in his suitcase. A pack of player cigarettes, his shaving kit, a box of matches, a tin of pomade, several pairs of shirts and shoes. Bending down, he snapped the suitcase shut, just as his wife Yasuko came into the room, prompting him to lift his head and look up at her.
"What are you doing?"
she asked, folding her arms.
"Dinner's not going to be for another few hours."
He straightened up and met her eyes.
"I'm going out, and I'll be back in a week. I'm not telling you where I'm going." "But what about the bicentennial celebration? We've been planning this for weeks. How we wish to ride the Ferris wheel and fire at ducks at the shooting gallery and gorge ourselves with funnel cakes and cotton candy."
He shook his head.
"I wanted to, but I changed my mind." "Well, wherever you go, make sure you say goodbye to your daughter first, and make sure you get enough sleep,"
she said, pointing at her husband's face.
"Just look at your eyes."
He heads into the bathroom and looks at his reflection. Dark circles have been formed around his eyes for the past hour. That's because he got stung by the Cat Queen's cat figurine. What's more, his personality changes after he got stung, thus making him not only clear out thoughts of precision and order, but he immediately support the creatures that met him from the start, even the cat girl who deserves to be welcomed.
"Don't worry about it,"
he said when he came out of the bathroom. "I've never felt better."
"Are you sure?"
she asked.
"After you've been fired from the council?"
He stopped as his bad mood was suddenly resurfaced by those words. "That's right," he said, glaring.
"Because I had to believe in things that aren't supposed to exist in the city." "Oh, don't listen to what the mayor said,"
she said.
"Don't let it get to you. You could—"
"Why should I?
After what this girl had done, even the parade we've spectated with our little Mei-chan, like everybody?"
"And then what happens next, Yasuko-san? Have Donovan consider this an event that's not supposed to happen. So I hope you have something else to do this Sunday, because I'm not going to let you and your daughter go out."
"What are you saying?"
"You're not going to the bicentennial this Sunday. I'm going to make sure you hate the mayor too, for not welcoming the girl, and for firing me for what I believe in."
"You can't be serious."
"And made terrible things happen to Donovan and that precious bicentennial." She decided that she heard enough. Clearly, something's wrong with him.
"How could you say that?"
she asked.
"What's gotten into you? Whatever happened to the husband I came to know? The husband I've married? Because this isn't like you. And if it's because of what you believed in, I'm sorry. But this is what Donovan had in mind when he announced everyone to believe in what is real. He'll do whatever it takes to make sure the bicentennial is without incident."
"Then it is my intention to make sure it doesn't go well without her. And I won't be doing it alone," he said, and walked over to the table, picking up the beckoning cat figurine.
"What are you doing with that?"
she asked. He brings the cat figurine towards his wife and tells her,
"Oh, how you drive me to do something drastic if you dare think of hindering."
He starts up the device with a switch. The left arm begins moving back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Satoru Takahata, with a suitcase in his hand, as well as a bulky shape wrapped in parchment, stepped out of his apartment where the Cat Queen's Peugeot was waiting for him, parked onto the curb. Ryotaro looked down at Takahata's suitcase.
"You got everything?" he asked. "Because we don't have much time."
Without looking up at the apartment, Takahata nodded.
"I'm ready," he said. "Let's go." "I'll hold on to your things for you," Ryotaro said, reaching out.
Takahata hands over the suitcase and the package to him. who placed it in the front seat. Takahata sat in the back, followed by Ryotaro. Then the Peugeot drives off, on its way to the woods. "What's in that paper package?" Ryotaro asked. "Consider it an offering to Miss Sanwa, Ryotaro," Takahata said. "I was hoping that she and I will easily become friends if I give her this." "So what's going on with you?" "I did what I had to do. My wife was concerned at first, but I took care of her." "You took care of her, all right. Now my wife and child shall support the cat girl with us. Then I will make sure you get rewarded later, and for the offering." "Do you think bad things will happen to the bicentennial?" "Depends on whether or not Donovan welcomes that girl. 48 hours left. And another thing, do not call her Miss Lenoir anymore. You will call her the Cat Queen, for her mask is already off." Takahata said nothing and glared out the window. Later on, he became relieved that he no longer see any buildings around, just the occasional sound of birds, the rare sight of a deer drinking from a stream, and the dirt path ahead, surrounded by never-ending forest. In fact, the isolation and the friendliness of nature is just what he needed after he got fired from the city council by the arrogant and unpleasant Mayor Donovan. "Reynard Manor is just ahead," Ryotaro said. "You're interested in supernatural creatures, are you not? Well, now's your opportunity to mingle with them." "Of course I will," Takahata said. "Mostly Miss Lenoir, I mean Cat Queen." "You do? Then do tell why." "I think I found a liking to this Bakeneko, especially with her inviting charm, like an alluring siren." "That's because you yourself were unaware of how unpredictable the Cat Queen shall be, not because of her body." "Unpredictable?" "Those who are stupid enough to dare test the Queen's limits immediately suffer the consequences. She knows how to deal with them without showing a trace of pity or remorse. Just be glad that you're not one of them. The stupid." The Peugeot passed through the open wrought iron gates of Reynard Manor when Takahata's eyes went wide in awe. Staring back at him was a giant cat bus growling at him curiously. To him, the growl sounds more like a cat's purr. Nervously, he waves back. The Peugeot comes to a stop, and Ryotaro slaps Takahata in the back. He turns to see the kitsune's glare. Then Ryotaro hands Takahata the paper package. "Unless you got a death wish, don't look at him, don't even talk to him. He's not very lenient of seeing new faces," Ryotaro said. "Get out of the car and get to the entrance. Then pull the rope, the black one. I'll get your suitcase." Exiting the Peugeot and covering his eyes with his hand so he doesn't look at the cat bus, Takahata heads up the front porch, his shoes pounding against the wooden floor as he went, before he pulls a black rope with his free hand, ringing a brass bell from inside.
"All right!"
a voice shouted from behind the doors.
"I'm coming! Let go of the rope! Oh, why would that old owner ever bother installing that? Knocking would have sufficed!"
The doors open, and Inari stood in front of Takahata. "Are you Takahata Satoru?" Inari asked. "I am," Takahata nodded. "And it's Takahata Satoru, a councilman. I now speak for my new friend, the Cat Queen. I'm here to move in, so I can start being loyal to her."
"Well, say no more,"
Inari said, stepping out of the way.
"You could just come in so you can get settled in right away. Oh, by the way, you can call me Inari."
Takahata stepped inside the entrance hall. "As in Inari Okami, the god of rice and of foxes," he said.
Why, of course I am,
Inari said.
I mean, I'm the same deity who is the patron of blacksmiths and the protector of warriors. If only you've been to one of my shrines in reverence.
I have, Takahata said. 1/3 the shrines in Japan are dedicated to you. In fact, according to mythology, Inari Okami was a goddess who came to Japan on a white fox at the time of its creation, in the midst of a harsh famine that struck the land, carrying shells of cereal or grain. Inari chuckled weakly.
Oh, men these days, always thinking of the opposite sex when it comes to deities. But that wasn't the case for me. That's because back in the day, I sometimes dressed myself as a woman. Makes you wonder how many men I fooled, don't it?
Then Ryotaro came in with Takahata's suitcase, giving it to Inari. Take this upstairs to the tower bedroom, he instructed. He'll unpack by himself. Arigato, Takahata said. Appreciate it. Inari nodded and heads upstairs.
How did you manage to own a house like this, in the middle of a forest?
Takahata asked Ryotaro. A logging magnate was once the owner of this house, Ryotaro said. It's his death that left the house and everything in it to be inherited by me. The only thing I've changed about the house, aside from the recent installation of electricity, was the name of it. Reynard Manor.
Reynard,
Takahata said.
You've renamed this house after a character from medieval folklore.
Yes, Ryotaro said. And like Reynard the fox, a kitsune is prone to be cunning. Now here in Reynard Manor, Takahata Satoru, you can go anywhere you like. Yet there are some rooms that you mustn't go to.
Like what?
My master bedroom and my private study upstairs. The master bedroom is where I please my mistress on occasions, and the study is where I write my journal entries and other things.
Other things?
There is a book I'm writing called Stranger Things in an Ordinary City, with lots and lots of emphasizing details of every single demon that exists, seen by human eyes. Most of them can be found in where we're from. That is, if they remain there, while more happen to show up in Kodono unexpectedly.
Unexpectedly? How come?
It all started with a domino effect weeks ago. One girl happened to bring one yokai, the cat bus you've seen outside, into existence.
Princess Kitty.
Princess Kitty. How does she manage to do something like that? What she gave the cat bus, along with our queen, her partner, and her 2 black cats, is the gift of existence. It's like a virus, only they're willing to endure it 100-fold. And the domino effect, it affects our world, Mr. Takahata. It's like pulling one tiny thread, and everything unravels between reality and myth. There are ways of making a living to a world unfamiliar to our own.
Nodding understandably, Takahata asked, Later on, can I please read what you've written in your book?
I'll see that you do, Ryotaro said. You may or otherwise be entitled to know the knowledge of such creatures from mythology.
As soon as Ryotaro heads upstairs, Takahata can feel a sudden coldness around him. From here, he began to hear the faint melody of a harpsichord playing, and the crackling of a fireplace from the parlor left of him. At first, he felt uneasy hearing something of a classical quality from some other time. At the same moment, he had fallen into an enchantment. At that point, he found himself unable to move or think clearly,
Then came a voice, suddenly breaking out from the music. It seemed to be the voice of the sultry cat queen chanting verses, faint at first, and then clear ran the words. Shineko was an oiran who enticed the feeble men in the pleasure land of Yoshiwara, where procurers always yen. Her body is so svelte and tall, her figure so concealed. Her neck was fashioned like a swan, and her hair like a golden field. Her voice is like a siren, her womb is always fertile. Her bosom is plump and rounded, and lusty all the while. It is said, if people can recall, that she can both entice and corrupt those who are unwary with contempt as cold as ice. They say she's like a predator who makes prideful men her prey. She's willing to shatter their wills as their haughtiness slip away. She may be like any oiran, but she's not what she seemed. She's not a human to begin with more fear than you've dreamed. Underneath both moon and star, in the red light district, as patrons dared, there 2 men encounter her, with her promiscuity already flared. Once 2 men are under her spell, she makes them fight one another. So only one must remain standing, then make his haughty nymph his lover. Out of jealousy, one man was slain by another man's dagger through his breast. And when the cruel deed is done, his declaration of love he had expressed. But the oiran turned away, rejecting him out of spite, seeing the blood that has been spilled from the relentless fight. But the man has apprehended her and dragged her to his domicile. There he beats her to submission before pillaging her for a while. She cried out because of the pain, though it did little to ease his lust. She felt her willpower die away and has yielded from every thrust. And when she's at her climax, there her body began to alter. The man can see fur all over her as her pleasure began to falter. Then her ears became all pointed, as well as her nails and teeth. Then her eyes became all golden, where her lust is found beneath. When she snarled at his face, he felt himself full of fear. He tried desperately to get away. Alas, her hunger became severe. And lo, it is he who has submitted. Her desires formed into an echo. Beneath came wrath and mercilessness, for she is truly a Bakeneko. With every thrust, his will is broken. With every gasp, she sates for more. With every cry, her avidity swell, more intense like never before. And when he escaped, he won't get far. At every turn, she's always near, like an omnipresent monster who is willing to make him blear. He ran farther and farther away, and while he ran, he fights for breath. He stumbled onto a ravine, and there he fell to his death. Though the tale happened long ago, it will inevitably happen again to those who dare oppose and resist, only to be rewarded through pain. From deep within the Bakeneko, vitriol and prejudice always linger,
whilst enticing the feeble to submission, their bodies wrapped around her finger. To those who are arrogant and foolish, if one dared to gaze at her eyes, she's yearning to feel hungry and lead the men to their demise. Around the corners of the earth, may she express her hostility out of either spite or tedium with a sense of instability. For those who wish to be loyal, they must follow a compromise, to not show any intractability on pain of a merciless demise. Remember this dire warning, whilst her wrath lingers to an echo. There's always dire penalties when you dare meet a Bakeneko.
Though the chanting had ceased from inside the parlor, the verses seemed to deepen and reverberate and linger in his head. At the same time, everything around him seemed to quiver as he felt something warm from his nostrils and down his lips. Upon feeling it with his tongue, he could feel his lungs seize up and his heart beating. Blood. Touching it with his fingers, he looked at them in shock. His nose has been bleeding out.
Dear Lord, protect me from vice and deliver me from temptation,
he muttered.
Dear Lord, let my body be cleansed from sin.
Like that is going to help, darling.
The voice happened to call from the parlor, which was an octave lower and reverberating.
I know you've heard me. You know better not to lurk in doorways. It's unmannerly. Now, aren't you going to step forward? Your queen demands your presence, if you wish to be loyal.
With his face all pale, wiping off the blood from his face, he slowly heads in. Looking around, the walls are cream-colored, with a rich wood paneling. The windows were draped in scarlet curtains. The harpsichord continues to play, but he finds no one touching the keys. The keys moved on their own. To his right, he can see the curvaceous figure of the Cat Queen curling up onto the sofa, her tail slinking behind her, as the fireplace beside it continues to crackle with flame. On one hand, a branch of silver vine. He can see that her eyes are glossy and calm, her glare sinister, yet lustful, as if she spotted a large slab of raw meat. He was stunned with what she was wearing. She wore a carnal-colored fur-lined coat with black spots around the huge white fluffy collar and matching cuffs. Underneath her coat, she wore a tight brown waistcoat underneath her white blouse. She was shod in black high-heeled boots with silver soles over gray tights, and on her hands were white gloves with the claws protruding out of them. There was a childlike quality to this cat, a certain seductiveness. A cat queen. She rose up, her 7-foot-tall frame easily dwarfing him as she walked towards him, her bountiful proportions bouncing and jiggling with each step she took underneath her clothes. I can't help but think if it seemed unusual for an ordinary man to ever want to live with creatures like me, she cooed, impressed. He quickly nodded as her bosom was mere inches from her face. I would. Then he backs away and gives the offering to her. I'm here to make a promissory commitment for your help, hoping it will preserve my force long enough only to have the mare strung up, for not only firing me, but driving the girl away from here. This Princess Kitty. She unwraps the package and finds a herring inside.
That means we're friends now, right?
He asked. She said, while placing the herring on the coffee table behind her. That depends if you don't invoke my wrath.
Never,
he said.
Instead, I shall be loyal to you.
I'm pretty sure you're very impressed, she said, while she hoisted him by the collar until he met face to face. I really do look like a queen, don't I, darling? He felt himself dangling, his feet struggling to reach the ground. Oh, come now, darling. Don't be like that, she said.
I'm not. If you're a queen, then what are you queen of?
Of the underground. Of all the yokai. My full name is the Cat Queen of the Underground, the Great Mother of Disorder and Consternation of the Earth.
I've been listening to what you say about an Oiran named Shineko, who turns out to be a Bakineko. Are you her? Is Shineko your real name?
Darling, I go by many names like Miss Lenoir, known by many identities. If only you can identify a yokai to a human as much as yours truly.
It is impossible.
That's because they have to wear their masks to blend in. However, it'll become obsolete as they slowly become corporeal.
I'll put that in mind.
If you have looked at yourself in the mirror lately, I can tell that little sting from my toy makes you more determined to degrade the oppressor as much as the unknown.
Sure as sin I want to degrade him.
Sure you will, she said, before putting him down. I'll make sure you get your chance for a vendetta against him. This is what the Queen has decreed.
With your consent, may I please call you Shineko openly?
You have my consent. Now, while you go upstairs to your room, I'll clean myself up for tonight, after I had my meal. Suddenly, upon seeing her grin becoming predatory, he feels mortified and steps back.
You're not going to take off your clothes and lick yourself later, are you?
He asked. She bent forward and pinched his cheek with her fingers. He can feel her tail softly stroking against his leg. Only ordinary cats lick themselves clean, she said. I only take bubble baths.
And I'm sure it makes perfect sense to you, seeing that you're not an ordinary cat, Shineko, he said, gently pushing her away. I will live long to see Donovan get what he deserves.
How I do recall an old saying in the ancient world, she said. Vengeance is always best when it is overdue.